Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I have left a few moments just to see if we get some more people joining at the start of the session. I've also added a couple of messages into the chat box. So do feel free to use that throughout the whole of the session just to ask any questions, introduce yourselves, let us know who's joining us today, and then we can tailor the session to your needs as best we can. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We have allowed 60 minutes for this session, and that does include a Q&A at the end. As I've just mentioned, if you do want to ask a question, then please do pop that into the chat box. We'll try and get through as many of those as possible throughout the session. This is a live webinar. However, we are recording the whole thing. So we will make sure that we send you a follow-up email with a link to rewatch the webinar, as well as all of the links to resources that we discussed throughout today's session too. If you find that you have any issues with your internet connection, the best thing to do is just to exit the webinar. So actually leave the live room and then follow the joining link to actually jump straight back into the live room. You might find you actually miss out on any of the chat that's been happening, but please just do drop a message in the box and we will bring you back up to speed. If you find that my video and Kyle's video is just sat hovering over a slide, then please do go up to the top right-hand corner, click the view option and actually select side by side speaker view, and that should remove us completely from the slide. I have been joined today by Carl Robinson from Sport Northern Ireland, who's going to talk about the wonderful Creating Opportunities Fund, which is an extra funding or match funding opportunity that we distribute through Crowdfunder to eligible campaigns. So we'll talk about what makes an eligible project, how you can apply for that, and how you can then go on to actually be successful with your crowdfunding campaign too. Fingers crossed, we're going to also be joined by Marty from Belfast Ravens. So hopefully he'll be diving into the live room ever so shortly, and he can tell us about his campaign as well. Okay, so for those of you in the room with us today, for some of you, crowdfunding might be a completely new concept. And by all means, pop into the chat box if you've got any experience with crowdfunding. Maybe you've donated to a campaign, maybe you've actually run one previously. It's always good to know what kind of experience level we have so we can obviously tailor today, as I mentioned, to your needs. For those of you that don't know about crowdfunding, essentially, it's going out to your crowd or your community and your network and bringing in donations, financial contributions to your project, to your idea, to making sure that you can fundraise the amount of money that you need to get your project off the ground. Now, Crowdfunder UK is unique in a couple of different ways. Firstly, it's a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. And what we mean by that is we actually give project owners, so yourselves, the ability to offer a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. And we can look at that in a bit more detail later on, but what we're talking about when we say rewards is things that you might have capacity to offer. So that might be sponsorship, that might be a team day at your facilities, that might be merchandise, that could be vouchers for your clubhouse bar, and also things that the community at large can offer. So that's going out to your business community and sourcing things like products, services, vouchers, all potentially gifted to you in the same way that you would do an in-person raffle, going out and actually sourcing some of those raffle prizes. Rather than raffling them off, what you're going to do is actually attribute a price point to them and list them on your campaign page. People will then claim those rewards at those various price points. The money goes into your campaign. They will receive that reward that is really exciting that you've been able to source from your local community. So it incentivizes their giving and it also gives you a way to say thank you to your supporters. So how does crowdfunding work? Well, first and foremost, you would need to set up an account on crowdfunder.co.uk, and that's a free to access account. You'd then start setting up your unique campaign page. So this is your opportunity to tell your story, explain your idea to your potential supporters, make sure that you set an achievable target for how much money you need to raise, and then how long you need to run your project for in order to raise that money. You can then go on to add any of those rewards that I've just mentioned and apply for any extra funding that you may have been matched with. So our wonderful system, our platform will match your project, your organization with any of our match funding partners that could be a good fit for you. And fingers crossed for all of you here today, that's going to be Sport Northern Ireland. You might find that there's some other funds as well that you're eligible for. You can always apply for more than one if it's a great position to be in. And if that's the case, you could also potentially receive pledges, so receive extra funding pledges from more than one of our extra funding partners too. When it comes to rewards, be nice and creative. So reach out to that network around you and try and source a variety of rewards with a wide appeal. So not just thinking about the people that you work with day to day, so your club members or your beneficiaries. Try and think about your community at large and how you might be how you might be able to, incentivize that wider community with some really enticing rewards. And always check for any extra funding that you might be eligible for and apply for everything and anything that you think would be a good fit. You are then going to launch your project. So you're going to set your project live on our site on crowdfunder.co.uk, and then it's up to you to actually promote your campaign. So you're going to spread the word with your friends, your professional contacts, and your network in order to bring in those donations and that support. When it comes to crowdfunding, lots of people, of course, are only thinking about that financial raise and the fundraising that they need to achieve. One thing that's worth considering when thinking about raising money in this way is those additional benefits that come along from running a crowdfunding campaign. First and foremost, it's a great way to build some validation in your idea. It's going to help build confidence in what you're doing, not only for yourselves as the project owners, but also within your community. It's going to demonstrate if there is an appetite for what you're doing. So it's a really low risk way to actually test the water and see if what you're hoping to achieve lands well with your community and those that are potentially going to be impacted by your idea. It's also a great way to build awareness around what you're doing. So you're going to potentially create a buzz around your idea and get people excited about when you're going to be able to bring that project to fruition. And also it's going to help you to get noticed by a wider audience. So we will be kind of setting you to task with actually making sure you're looking outside of your core audience. So that's going to be outside of your existing members and existing supporters and really helping to kind of widen that lens and go out to the wider community at large. And we'll make sure we give you all of the resources to do that effectively. And in terms of those that do support you, they will organically become advocates of what you're doing. So posting regular updates throughout your crowdfunding campaign will really help to solidify those relationships. Everyone that is supporting you will potentially go on to talk about the fact they've supported your campaign, will share it ideally with their networks as well. And the more that you keep these people in the loop, the more engaged that audience becomes and can lead to some really meaningful connections going forward. That could lead to people being able to come into the fold of the club or the organization as potential volunteers. They could be, you know, potential new members. They could also just be members of the business community who might want to come on board as a potential sponsor. So it's a great way to actually build that advocacy of what you're doing. You will probably learn some new skills as well. For some of you, this might be a completely new way of raising money, and we are here to support you to do it every step of the way. We've got lots of tools and resources to have you doing this like a pro, pushing you out of your comfort zone sometimes, but the support is there to get you doing this effectively. And lots of these skills are transferable into other areas of your organization as well. Things like networking and creating engaging content. Those are things that can be woven into day-to-day kind of club or organizational life that can help you to grow outside of the campaign. And then, of course, there's that extra funding offer, which we're going to talk further about with Kyle in a few moments as well. So why does sport crowdfund so well, physical activity? There's a few key reasons. Mainly, it's because you have a ready-made crowd at your fingertips. The chances are that your organization or your club is at the heart of your community, and also you already have, if you're at the stage of kind of, you've already got members, you've already got participants, you're already delivering something, and it's not a completely new project, you're going to have that engaged audience already. So that's going to become your core crowd. That's really important. And that's something that sets you kind of a few steps ahead of others that are trying to do this for the first time. You're all going to have a shared passion and you're going to want to see this project come to fruition. It's probably, I'd say, one of the easiest ways to develop a team of people around you. The chances are you have others within your organizational club. You may well have fellow volunteers, or you might have club members or participants, parents of club members that you can lean upon and actually develop a team of people around you to help you do this collectively and collaboratively. It's always easier to achieve if you've got a group of people around you to help you do it. Of course, you can do it as a solo venture, that's absolutely fine. But we all know it's better to do things when you've got a few different sets of eyes on things, and you can also delegate tasks to different people. It makes the whole thing a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit easier as well. You're going to be known in your community. What's interesting though, in many cases when it comes to crowdfunding, is that sports clubs and organizations specifically feel as if they're known in the community in one way, and then actually they run a crowdfunding campaign and realize that there's quite a section of the community who don't realize all of the different things that they do, whether that's having positive impact in their kind of, um, it might be that they work with the elderly, or they work with real young members of the community, or they do lots of kind of community impact work and charitable work that actually the community at large who don't have a day-to-day relationship with the club aren't aware of this. So, by putting a crowdfunding campaign together and talking about all of this wonderful stuff that you do, helps to raise the profile of the club or the organization even further. You may well have the capacity to run some fundraising challenges or activity, especially if you've got your own venue. You might invite people down to have a tournament. You might set some fundraising challenges within your teams, or it could be that you reach out to the local schools, local colleges, and get them involved as well. Maybe setting a kind of run, swim, walk challenge or a community day. That's a great way to engage people around you and to get them taking ownership for some of the fundraising as well. You will have a network at your fingertips. Okay. So not only do you have this ready-made crowd that may be able to donate to you, you'll have a ready-made network that you could potentially lean upon for gifting you rewards, whether that's local businesses, whether that's existing members and participants who've got skill sets or, side hustles or businesses themselves that can donate things. And of course, relying upon them to share your projects as well with their own networks. You may find that you've got either local celebrity or kind of sporting alumni that have come up through the ranks of your club or organization. Reach out to them and see if you can get a little bit of a share on their social media platforms. Maybe they can donate something. They might even offer a signed shirt or something like that that you can actually add as a reward. So reach kind of for the stars, if you like. Don't rely on it, but it's a great thing to have if you're able to actually bring some of that into the fold as well. And always, always, always highlight your community impact, because that's going to be the human interest point that connects with your wider audience as well as your existing members and participants. So, just a few numbers so far in terms of crowdfunding and kind of sports organizations. We've worked with various different sporting extra funding partners over recent years. Obviously, Sport Northern Ireland, which we'll hear about today. We've also are working with Sport England and Sport Wales, and we have worked with British Cycling in the past as well. So, with the funds that they have had on offer, we've managed to distribute more than £11.3 million to eligible clubs, and that's just through those sporting partners. That's not including those projects that have also received money from the local authorities that we work with or the national corporate funds that we work with too. We've seen more than 7,000 sports focused projects and physical activity projects come through the platform, and they've been supported by more than 450,000 individuals within their communities. So, a lot of these organizations are really grassroots clubs. So, it's great to see the amount of support that they've been having and the impact that that's then um, developed and allowed within their communities. And overall, they've raised more than £39.5 million as well to be able to put back into their communities and develop their projects. Now, I was hoping at this point that Marty would jump into our call. I know he's trying to join us on a lunch break. So what we might do is skip past Marty's slide for a moment and keep everything crossed that he's able to just dive into our live call at some point a bit later on, and we can loop back round. I will share a link to Marty's project into the chat box though, so you can take a little look at it. But it's a really lovely, again, very grassroots projects where they didn't need to raise a huge amount of money, but they still exceeded their target. They had a lovely campaign, and what they managed to raise is really going to help them to actually deliver what they wanted to do. So I thought it was a really nice example of it doesn't have to be a huge, lofty target to actually have an impact. But we'll loop back round. Fingers crossed Marty can join us as soon as possible. So we'll go on to introduce my panelist or co-host for today, the wonderful Kyle Robinson from Sport Northern Ireland. Hi, Kyle. How are you?
Hi, Zoe. I'm all good, thank you. How are you keeping?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining
Good.
us today. You're going to talk through the Creating Opportunities Fund from Sport Northern Ireland. So I will take myself off camera, mute myself, and then please do give me a shout when you want me to change slides. I'm driving the slides from my side, and I'll see you shortly.
Yes, I was gonna say, Zoe, I'm glad you're not completely disappearing because I think I need you to control my slides. So I do very much appreciate that. But yeah, listen, I want to thank you all first of all for coming on, most likely on your lunch break, to listen to us, talking about first of all crowdfunding in general, but also then the Creating Opportunities Fund, which is our lottery funding from Sport NI, that we're offering up to £5,000 per project, up to a maximum of 50% match funding. So I'm going to share briefly a little bit about what Creating Opportunities is. I'm going to then discuss a little bit around the eligibility side of things of Creating Opportunities, and some of the first of all the eligible groups that can apply, and then also then some of the eligible costs that are included in projects that we have funded in the past and will continue to fund. And then finally, because we're now into phase two of Creating Opportunities, I'm going to look at sharing a few different key tips, and maybe some of the key resources to have a look at from our side of things, when applying for our funding. So, Zoe, if you're happy enough to go on to the next slide there, and just share a wee bit about what Creating Opportunities is. So, as Zoe has mentioned before, it's delivered in partnership with Crowdfunder UK. We have been working with Crowdfunder for some time now in previous projects as well, previous grant projects. We've found it's worked very effectively. And now we're into phase two of Creating Opportunities. So, Creating Opportunities, as it says on the screen, there's a small grant program designed to enable investment into new and additional projects for groups. So, again, that is one of the things that I would really make sure that you focus on, and I'll come back to that over the next couple of slides. But it's new and additional projects, new or additional, should I say, projects that we're looking to fund and support through our small grants stream with Creating Opportunities. Just on the next part, then, it aims to connect communities, enabling more people to take part in sport and physical activity throughout Northern Ireland. So, again, that's the whole ethos of it, that we're trying to connect local groups with their local community, and enable more people to take part in sport and physical activity throughout the country. A core focus of the programme is to create opportunities to level the playing field. So, whenever I use this term of leveling the playing field, I will talk a little bit more about it in the eligibility side of things. We're looking at our underrepresented groups in sport and physical activity and how we can engage them through the different projects that we're looking to fund. And then just lastly, I mentioned it maybe at the start there, but the program offers up to 50% match funding support up to a maximum of £5,000 from Sport NI through the Crowdfunder platform. So, as Zoe mentioned before, there's the extra funding tab, and then the opportunity to connect with our Creating Opportunities application if your campaign is eligible for that. So, say hypothetically, I know she mentioned Belfast Ravens there, for instance. They didn't go in for the full £10,000 project. But say, for instance, you are looking for £6,000 project, we will match up to 50% of that. So it'll be £3,000. So as I say, the maximum that we will match is £5,000. So you can have a total project cost of a maximum of £10,000 for what you're looking to deliver. Anything beyond that would have to be raised by you. So hopefully that makes sense. Phase one happened last financial year. We're now into phase two, and it's now open for projects being delivered between April 2025 and March 2026. So there are projects that have already come in phase two. We have already approved a number of projects, which is really positive. And yeah, we're hoping to get more and more coming in over the coming weeks and months. So Zoe, if you could move on to the next slide, that would be great. Just looking at eligibility then. So there are four main groups that are eligible to our Creating Opportunities program. So the first one being probably in phase one, certainly the most popular one, which was our sports clubs. So these sports clubs, they have to be affiliated to a recognised governing body of sport to be on our list on Sport NI to be considered as a constituted sports club, which can apply for this funding. So again, if you need the information on the recognised governing bodies, please just let me know and I can send you a list of those through, no problem. So sports club, first of all. Next one is a charity. So charities can apply for this program. It does say sort of primary activity here, but really whenever we're referring to that, we're talking about the primary activity of your project being sport and physical activity. Doesn't have to be your primary activity for everything that you do. But if you are again, looking at this hypothetically, if you are maybe a mental health charity that wants to deliver a range of new or additional sports programs to something that you're already delivering, you want to pay for a few additional coaching costs and maybe some venue hire. A charity that has a primary goal of mental health but wants to use sport and physical activity for good can still apply for something like this. Then there are community and voluntary sector organisations are eligible to apply. And then the last one that can apply is parent-teacher associations. So again, our parent-teacher associations, they are groups that if they are delivering some form of extracurricular sport and physical activity that's new or additional, they can also apply. So those are the four main groups. And again, if there's any questions on those, please feel free to put them into the chat for us. So we'll just move on to eligible costs now. So whenever we're looking at eligible costs, I'll start with the leveling the playing field aspect because it's a really important element to this program and something that we will always look for whenever we're assessing grants and assessing the applications and campaigns that are coming in. So it's ultimately looking at people who maybe were traditionally underrepresented within sport or potentially excluded from sport, and how maybe your project is looking to include one or more of those groups. So I have a list of those groups, which I'll just read out to you. But any of the projects that we fund, we are looking to try and I suppose target at least one of these underrepresented groups. So it's looking at participants maybe with a disability in some capacity, women and girl participation, children and young people, especially those aged between 11 to 18 years old, mainly because the research is telling us a lot around dropout rate at those age ranges throughout sort of post primary school. Um, Older aged people over 65 years old, again, an underrepresented group often in sport and physical activity, ethnically diverse communities, LGBTQ plus communities, people living in areas of greatest need. So again, that one is assessed whenever you're coming in and submitting your application. It is assessed by the Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency's multiple deprivation measure. So you don't have to do anything for that, but whenever you submit your group's postcode, it will be able to give us the multiple deprivation measure ultimately, and we will be able to tell whether your group is working with people in greatest social need. But you can also emphasize maybe within your project, if you're even if you're not from an area of high social need, that you're maybe encouraging um, participants from an area of high social need to take part in your project. And then the last one is people living in rural areas. So again, you don't need to target all of these groups. That would be a huge project to undertake, I think, and probably would need more money for that. But even if you are maybe selecting a specific group within that, those groups are all in our guidance notes as well, which I'll share a bit of info on later. Again, as mentioned before, projects must be new and additional. If you just want to move on, Zoe, to the next wee section. Brilliant, thank you. So they must be new and or additional, and not for delivery of normal day-to-day club activity. We do sometimes see this. And look, I completely understand that the costs for running a club every day is challenging. But what I would say is that if you are wanting to include some form of club running costs, I would want to emphasize that you make sure that there's at least 50% of the total target project cost that is eligible with our creating opportunities program, because we ultimately fund 50% of it. We need to identify 50% of the funding that is eligible for us, and it has to be that new or additional element that we will fund. Just the next part then, campaigns requesting between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds, which is the maximum amount of match funding, must include a bespoke project video. Crowdfunder are really great in terms of guiding you through this process. There's lots of resources on their resource hub on how to go about creating your video. It sometimes can seem very daunting, but it's actually a very straightforward process. We're not looking for any Oscar nominees or anything like that from our project videos that we're putting forward. There are some excellent videos that come forward to us, but it's ultimately just to give a flavour of who you are as a group, what you're looking to deliver, and I suppose how it's going to impact on leveling the playing field and how it's going to create new and additional opportunities for people to take part in sport and physical activity in your local community. So it's quite a straightforward video. It doesn't have to be complicated in any capacity. It can be as simple as an interview at your club's venue or at your organisation's venue. So yeah, that would be the campaign requesting between 4 and 5K has to do a project video. Just the next section then, that only organizations can only have one successful creating opportunities application within a 12-month period. And whenever I say that, I actually mean within the sort of phases. So phase one's finished now. If you had delivered a project within that financial year. So obviously it was the financial year of 2024, April 2024 to March 2025. You can now apply for a new an additional project for creating opportunities phase two, which runs from 2025 into to March 2026. So if you have a project that's going on in that period of time, you can then submit a new project. We then are hoping to have phase three as well. So again, you can potentially apply for three different projects throughout the three different phases of creating opportunities, which is great. All applications and campaigns must be submitted for review by the 26th of January 2026 for phase two of the program. So that is when we close phase two of the program for applications. What I would say though is that we assess applications on a monthly basis. So we have an assessment board that meets at the start of every month. We've met there for June, just today actually. But and then we get internal approval to send out the letters of offer from that. But what we also do then as an assessment team, I would be the lead on the sort of assessment team that we have for creating opportunities, that we go back to groups on a weekly basis. So you can submit it at any time, and we'll come back to you with any feedback that we have on whether your project's eligible or not, first and foremost. And then if there's just some minor tweaks that you need to make for your campaign to meet our approval ultimately at the assessment board, we'll try and make sure that we can support you with that prior to the next monthly assessment board, so that we can then pass it and approve it in the next assessment board, if that makes sense. So we try to review them on a weekly basis, and the approvals and declines get sent out on a monthly basis. Just then, the next section is that all phase two projects must be completed and Sport NI funding spent by the 31st of March 2026. Again, to fall in line with our financial year of the project, we ask that all funding is completed by the end of the financial year. And then just last of all, I would just encourage you, and again, I'll encourage you probably before I finish up here, just to read the guidance notes and see the list of what we do not fund through creating opportunities. There's a comprehensive list on the guidance notes for creating opportunities on what we do not fund. They're on our website. I will share the link. The link is on our slides here as well, but I will share the link hopefully in the chat function as well. And you'll be able to see what we do not fund through creating opportunities as well. Just moving on to the next section then, thought it's important to maybe emphasize this. If you want to pop them all up on screen there, Zoe, all four examples. We, throughout phase one, we look to include some capital costs, recognizing that groups that are wanting to do new and additional participation projects may also want some element of capital costs to enable them to deliver their participation project. So the key here is that your capital costs must be linked to a participation project, okay? And they must relate to that specific participation project. What we thought was best was working directly with our infrastructure team here at Sport NI so that they could provide us with some hypothetical examples of different sort of capital equipment or capital works costs that are indeed eligible through creating opportunities. So as you can see there, there's different sort of projects that are attached to them, and then highlighting maybe the eligible capital element that that could be applied for within it. Some capital elements that we won't fund, and again, this is all stipulated within our guidance notes, but capital elements that cost more than 10k, which would be obviously above the total target of the project, and the likes of capital equipment or costs that require the appointment of design teams or require additional planning permission, thing like that. It's more smaller scale capital elements that we will fund through this program, because the focus, as I say, is creating more opportunities for sport and physical activity through participation projects. Hopefully that makes sense. And just to sort of finish off then, my last slide here just contains a few different key tips and resources that I'm kind of keen to share with you. It's based mainly off, I suppose, learnings from the last year or so of phase one of creating opportunities, and now moving into phase two. And some of them maybe the common mistakes that we see, and some of the areas that we see can maybe be improved on. So first and foremost, the guidance notes are there to be read, and we can usually read between the lines of the groups that have actually took a wee bit of time to read the guidance notes. and to try and align their project to the eligibility criteria that's set out within the creating opportunities guidance notes. Next one is another important one. On the Crowdfunder website, which again Zoe may be able to shed further light on as well, it may encourage you to go live with your campaign. There will be a button to select to go live with your campaign. What we ask campaign um, campaign owners to do before they ever go live with their campaign is to get approval from us for their project, because ultimately we can't fund projects that are already live. It's stipulated within our guidance notes because they may require changes ultimately, and if they require changes, they've already received funding from a crowd that isn't aware of those changes then that are going to be made. So we ask that you submit your campaign in draft form to us with the application completed. But the draft form has to be your complete application ultimately. And then we can look at assessing it from there and supporting you with that. Community-based rewards, I think it's already been mentioned slightly already, but we look for a minimum of 2 community-based rewards per application, and those community-based rewards are ones that look outside the 4 walls of your organization. So they can be something as simple as teaming up with your local businesses like local butchers, hairdressers, even your local spa or garage, and getting a couple of maybe £5, £10 vouchers for if groups that, or if a donor wants to donate £10 or more, they can claim a reward like a £10 spa voucher or something along those lines. So community-based rewards are an important element, and that they have to be included within your project. Another one's just clarity in project costs. We like to see a bit of a budget breakdown so that we can get real clarification on what we're actually funding through your project. Sometimes it can be very vague, and you can just see groups sometimes putting in the total lump cost. If you can itemize it and break it down, it gives us real clarity whenever we're coming to assess these projects, and really shows us that our money is going towards a good cause and a really positive project that's going to have genuine impact in its local community. Then, as I say, I've said it already a couple of times, new or additional projects. So again, that's a really important element to it. We need to fund new and or additional projects. You need to ensure that you've got an eligible time frame for spend. The previous slide about eligibility will highlight what that eligible time frame for spend is. And then last of all, video for projects requesting between £4,000 and £5,000 match funding. So that's essential for any videos that are any projects that are looking for that level of funding. So if you've a total project cost between £8,000 and £10,000, you're going to need a project video because you'll be looking for match funding of between £4,000 and £5,000 for us. I suppose just then the last element is just, I would really strongly encourage you to also look at the Crowdfunder Knowledge Hub. It's a really good resource, and it takes you through every step really of your campaign journey, whether it's just planning and preparing for creating a campaign, and then actually running your campaign and being able to deliver on your objectives. What I would say then as well is that we do have a support team specifically for this small grant of creating opportunities. As I said before, I am program lead on it, but we have a creating opportunities email, so you can get our email, and it is creatingopportunities@sportni.net. I will put it into the chat as well. I think it should be on that slide, all being well, Zoe, if you just want to. Yep, brilliant. So that's it there. I will put it into the chat anyway, for you to feel free to reach out. And then the last element is just around a how-to guide being developed. That has now been developed. It's called the Guide to Success, and it is on our website again. So I will share that web page link under important documents. So the how-to guide or guide to success is also on our webpage. Again, it's a similar resource to what Crowdfunder have developed for their generic campaigns. This one's just specific to creating opportunities. So a really useful resource to make good use of whenever you're going forward for your potential project. I think that's pretty much me in terms of creating opportunities. I will pass back to Zoe. You're still here. That's great,
I'm
Zoe.
still here.
And I'll go off screen again, but I will be around until the end if there are any specific questions. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that people have. Will we leave those to the end, Zoe? Would that probably be the best,
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
it?
think that's a good shout.
Yeah,
We've had a couple coming through, so we'll loop that
brilliant.
round. Carl's with us for the whole session, so we'll bring Carl back into the Q&A at the end as well. There's a few things that have popped up into the chat as well, Kyle, while you've been speaking.
No
Might be
worries.
worth just having a little read through.
I'll have a
Fab.
wee read through and make a couple of notes then before we have the questions at the end. Sure. Sounds good.
Brilliant, thank you. So a really exciting opportunity there from Sport Northern Ireland in terms of actually understanding if you might be eligible for the fund. First and foremost, take a look at the fund itself on our extra funding page. It will have all of the T's and C's and the eligibility criteria. I'll make sure I pop a link to that into the chat box as well as the follow-up email as well. The way that our platform works is when you actually set up your kind of the basic information, if you like, within your crowdfunding campaign page. So once you set up your free to access account with us, you'll be asked for a few details around your organizational structure, whereabouts you are in the country. You'll also be asked about things like your project aims as part of this extra funding section. And you can see there's a snapshot of it here on the slide. The extra funding section that you need to complete is very much a tick box exercise. So as long as you allow us to share your project details with our funding partners so that we can actually make sure that they get eyes on your idea. So do tick that one. And then when it comes to the other option, so who's likely to benefit from your project? That's looking at the kind of demographic of your community and who you're hoping to support. There will also be questions there around what your potential project outcomes would be. So for 99% of you on this call, it's going to be increasing physical activity. It could also be things like tackling loneliness and isolation. It might be creating an accessible route to physical activity or, making low cost uh, my brain has gone blank. Essentially, it's a tick box exercise. So you don't need me blurting it all out at you. You'll be able to see the different options, tick as many of those that are relevant to your particular project. All of that information, along with where you are, your organizational structure, is going to help our computer system to actually match you with any of those funds that you might be eligible for. And hopefully, then Sport NI Creating Opportunities Fund will be one of the options that you can apply for. And you can do that through your project dashboard. Your project dashboard is where you manage every single aspect of your campaign. There'll be the extra funding tab within that, and that will bring up all of the different funds you've been matched with. And then it's a very straightforward application process. I'd allocate around 10 to 15 minutes to complete that application. You can always look at all of the questions in advance, go away, collate any of the information that you need, maybe create a Word document or something similar with all of your answers. So you can simply copy and paste those over and then submit your application. And as Kyle said, you want to make sure you hang on for a decision from Sport Northern Ireland before you then go live with your campaign. So do make sure you're doing this while your campaign is in draft mode, so in the planning stages, and factor in enough time before your go live date for those decisions as well on your extra funding. In terms of the mechanics of how the actual funding works, you're going to have received your approval from Sport Northern Ireland ahead of going live with your project. So you already know that you're going to be getting this extra funding pledge. You've got a really exciting message to go out to your supporters with. You're going to launch your campaign and start crowdfunding. So you're going to start bringing in those donations by promoting your crowdfunding campaign effectively to your network. Once you have raised 25% of your initial target from at least 25 unique supporters, and what we mean by that is the first donation from an individual. You might have some people that donate multiple times, which is amazing. Only their first donation will count towards this particular milestone to unlock the Sport NI pledge. Okay, so just have that in mind as the first goal or first milestone to work towards. Raise 25% of your target from at least 25 unique supporters. At that point, you will see a pledge from Sport Northern Ireland land on your crowdfunding page. Your progress bar of how much you're raising will leap up by that pledge amount. You'll also have a lovely little banner of support from Sport Northern Ireland, which says, Sport and I are supporting this project as part of the Creating Opportunities Fund. Use that pledge, use that kind of promotional banner that's on there as motivation to go back out to your community and bring in those final donations so that you can hit 100% of your target in order to secure not only the pledge from Sport Northern Ireland, but then, of course, that money that you've been raising from your crowd as well. Okay, so use it as a brilliant motivator for your audience and for your crowd to get behind you. We need to now hit 100% of our target to secure this pledge that we've received from Sport Northern Ireland. Have that as part of your messaging. And then, if you so wish, you can carry on fundraising once you've hit your initial target. If you have some days or weeks left live on your campaign, you can always have an additional goal in mind, which is something we call a stretch target, which just gives your supporters another target to aim for, another amount of money above and beyond your initial target, which would just make your project kind of sing, really elevate it to the next level. So your initial target is what you need to make that thing happen, and your stretch target can be all of the kind of bells and whistles and all of the things that really elevate it. You can always carry on raising money as long as you have time left on your campaign. So how do you then go on? How do you connect with your supporters? This is something that comes up time and time again. You've got this lovely campaign page. You've been accepted for the Creating Opportunities Fund. How do you promote it? Think about creating something we call a network map. So break up your community as a whole or your crowd as a whole into segments, kind of bite-sized chunks, different groups of people that you're able to reach out to as a group. So that might be your core audience, so friends and family. It could be existing members or supporters. It could be partner organizations or suppliers. It can be your community groups around you, local schools, local press, Facebook and social media. All of these different audiences will have a different effective way of promotion that you need to think about. You're not necessarily going to reach out to your friends and family with a social media post. You might pick up the phone, you might put it in the family WhatsApp chat, you might send a newsletter to your existing members and supporters. You might have an in-person conversation with your supplier or over the phone when you speak to them and place your next order. So think about varying your ways of promotion with each different group. Always reach out to your core audience first. So that's going to be people super close to you in the campaign. So friends, family, and people that are your existing supporter network or your core audience. Use all different channels of communication. So face-to-face conversation is great. Printing some posters, putting a QR code on there that you can access from your project dashboard. That could be really helpful to put up in local businesses, for example. Pick up the phone, put it in Messenger chat, use social media, of course, but don't just rely on one form of communication. Each group will benefit from a certain type of communication more than others. So tailor your promotion to each group of your audience. Keep that promotion fresh. If you have capacity to maybe film a few different videos, maybe some testimonials from people, maybe some little interviews with existing members that you can clip up and put out onto socials throughout the course of the campaign. Keep that human interest point, keep the promotion fresh, focus on the different rewards, focus on the community impact, keep a human interest point within everything that you're doing. Always include those calls to action as well. So ultimately, for everybody, those calls to action are please donate to our campaign, please share our campaign with your networks, Please, can you offer a reward if you have capacity to do so? Or maybe it's, can you come and fundraise with us or for us because we're hosting this event or we're setting you this challenge? Okay, so those are going to be your calls to action. And that's kind of across the board. And then you might tailor that even more kind of specifically for the audience that you're communicating with. There are lots of funds that you may be able to access on Crowdfunder, so always take a look at the extra funding page. Make sure we pop that in for you to take a look at. Primarily, the focus for all of you here is going to be that Sport NI Creating Opportunities Fund, but it's always worth just taking a look to see if there's anything else there for you. We've talked about the page a fair bit, and actually telling your story is one of the key elements, along with promoting your campaign. You want to be effectively telling your story so that it lands well with those that are looking to support your campaign. We've got a lovely template already embedded within our system so that when you come through, you'll have access to this template, and all you really need to do is follow the pointers. So you can change the headers. So where it says, who are we? You might just have the name of your club or your organization, or you might have a little bit of a different title. Please change it up to make sure it's more personable to yourselves and your organization, but do follow this format. So a nice clear header, a paragraph of text kind of surmising what that header might be about, and then try and bookend that with an image wherever possible. So header, little bit of text and an image, and then repeat that throughout the page. Do highlight your community impact. Do flood that page with images, videos if you can, and always have that human interest point. I always recommend when people are creating their page that the way in which they tell their story is almost as if you are having a conversation with a friend that you've not seen in a long time and you're getting them up to speed on all of the great things that you've been up to. Showcase your personality, make it personable, make it conversational. That's the kind of tone that you want to create. You're not writing kind of a corporate pitch and you're not filling in a funding bid application necessarily. If you want to include any data points or any relevant information, that's wonderful. Of course you can. But the best thing to do is to keep it concise, keep it short, and keep it personable. And also have a section that outlines how you're going to be spending the money, because that just really helps your supporters to get a good idea of where their money's going, and they're more likely to support you on the basis of that. Here's some examples of a few different rewards that we've kind of cherry picked from a few different projects. So all sorts of things can make a good reward. We've got things like, choosing the name of a boat, £500, that's a massive reward. But actually for somebody, maybe I had, a relative who's sadly passed away, but we're a massive boating fan. And actually that would be a lovely way to honour their legacy is to actually name the boat after them. I might actually put £500 towards that. It could be a website sponsor. It could be, something that people need, like a dental hygienist appointment or a self-assessment tax return. Think about necessities as well as luxuries, as well as kind of quirky things that money wouldn't normally buy. Events are great. Discounted tickets or vouchers to things as well, just as Kyle mentioned too. The key is be creative, keep it varied, think about your wider community, not just your members, and have a nice varied price point as well with that offer. I did mention about people fundraising on your behalf. If you've got capacity to do that, you could actually ask people to set up their own fundraisers linked to your page. This is actually from the Brighton Surf Life Saving Club. They did this really effectively last year. So they actually had a few different people doing some swim challenges and they actually linked them all to their page. And it was a great way to bring in some additional money. Some raised a few hundred, some raised a few thousand. All of that gets funneled onto your main page, all of their supporter numbers, which helps that milestone, all of the money they raised, which helps again towards that milestone and beyond. So think about, do you have capacity to either set a challenge or host a fundraising day where people could be setting up their own pages linked to yours? They don't need to enter their financial details. If you want, you can share access to your rewards with them. So it's a great way to kind of really build upon that collaborative approach to fundraising. And as Kyle mentioned, we've got lots of different resources to help you do this effectively. Webinars such as this, Q&A drop-ins, come along and speak to us. We can help you with anything that you need in terms of questions. The Knowledge Hub, as Kyle mentioned, for every stage, all sorts of wonderful support. So do engage with us and our resources, as well as the team at Sport Northern Ireland. We're all here to help you to have a successful campaign and raise the money that you need. Apologies for the whistle stop tour there. I was conscious of time and I want to make sure we get through any questions. We will overrun by a minute or two as we didn't start until a couple of minutes past, if that's okay with everybody. Kyle, I have had a question come in. Um, is it possible to define rural in terms of the criteria? Have you got any more
Yeah,
information on
so
that?
I suppose whenever we're looking at rural, it's really just ultimately as simple as outside of main towns or cities, really. So you're looking at rural areas. Um, it could be smaller scale, much smaller towns, that are quite distant from others, or villages, or even complete countryside, really. So yeah, that would be our sort of standing point on rural. Again, that can be obtained usually from a club or group's postcode, but usually it's identified within their project on whether they're working within a rural area or not. Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. And in
If
terms of,
sorry,
sorry.
sorry, just to cut across you as well. So if there is a little bit more detail needed specifically on the criteria, I can share that criteria with anyone if needed. We usually do a rural needs assessment with any of our programs that Sport and I deliver. So just let me know and I can give the specifics of that. But I don't want to bore everyone with that, probably, to be honest, but I can certainly provide a little bit more detail on the definition of rural.
Amazing, thank you. This one in from Joe. Is it best to have only one crowdfunding project running at one time, or could you have multiple projects for multiple crowdfunding campaigns, I should say, for
Yeah,
multiple projects?
that's a good question, actually. So, what I would obviously it's a case by case scenario, that, but what I would say is there are some of the projects that we or campaigns that we've supported that have a range of different projects within that campaign. So, as I mentioned before, obviously, we can only support one campaign per year with our match funding. We can only support one application per year with our match funding. But if there are a number of different elements to that campaign, if there's a range of different projects, say, for instance, someone is wanting to set up a disability section, a youth section, and a female section within their club. They're wanting to do all of those different things. That can still come under one campaign, and that's no problem from our side of things. Um, but I would suggest that you probably do put that into one campaign if you're looking for our funding for it, because we can only fund one per phase, or per financial year. If you are looking to just deliver something, where you're just maybe wanting to crowdfund for different projects, there's no reason why you can't crowdfund for something and then maybe match fund with us for one of those projects. So you can do that as well. It's entirely up to the individual.
Brilliant, thank you. A question in from Brian, saying that slightly concerned that it would take quite a bit of time to raise 5K and then they'd have a limited amount of time to spend it, obviously, as part of the phase,
Yeah.
especially as the time remaining will be out of season because they're a
Yeah.
tennis organisation. Can they run a project in the summer and raise the money later at their own risk, i.e., if we don't raise it, we won't get the cost back?
And no, so it is a good question, Brian. What I would probably suggest is, even just to go through a bit of a hypothetical timeline with it, Brian. If you have a project in mind that you would be looking to deliver over summer, it'd be great to hear from you. And you can send us an email on that creating opportunities email. But what you could do is you could look at sort of starting to pull that together in the next week or so. Um, and we will have as I say, we'll have a monthly assessment board. We could hopefully get it into a position of readiness for getting an approval for the start of summer, which would be July. So the start of July. So you could then start doing your fundraising throughout July and maybe a little bit into August, whilst running your project alongside of that. Yeah, it would probably put you a little bit at risk in some capacity, but as long as you receive your success letter, before you actually start delivering your project, you would need to receive your success letter from us before you start any delivery of your project, because you can't get any retrospective funding from us. But if you were looking to deliver something then over the summertime or over July and August, you could maybe get approval from us and then just get going straight away with your project while you're also raising the money on your campaign. So you could do it side by side, I suppose. But you would then, as you rightly said, be at risk then maybe of not achieving your campaign target.
Amazing. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you to everybody who's joined us today as well. Hopefully you've all had all of the information that you need. It's given you some food for thought to kind of take the next steps. In terms of next steps for all of you here, take a look at the resources that we have. Do reach out to Sport Northern Ireland with any specific eligibility questions. Equally, if you have any crowdfunding related questions, you can come along to one of our Q&As, or you can reach out to our support team and they can triage you to a relevant person within the team. I would always recommend heading to the website and just pressing the start crowdfunding button. You're under no pressure whatsoever to go live with that campaign. You can work with it, you can keep building upon it, but you'll get a really good feel for what's required and see if you're eligible for the Creating Opportunities Fund and get those applications in so that you can actually kind of figure out if you are approved, then you can start thinking about timelines then for going live with your campaign and bringing in that much needed funding. But we are here, such as Kyle and his team as well, to support you every step of the way. So please do get in contact with us with any further questions. Thank you to Kyle for joining me today, and thank you all for giving up your lunch breaks to join us as well. And we wish you all the best of luck with raising the money you need for your projects. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. All the best.